Hello. Hi guys. Let me know if the audio is coming, okay? Hello. Okay. Audio seems fine. So, I this is the earliest I've ever come online. I think some of you are online. Yeah, one watching. It's probably me. So, not sure if anyone has joined yet. तो अभी संजय दीक्षित का लाइव भी चल रहा है and कुशल मेहरा is also live and online. So it's going to be a tough competition today. But doesn't matter. I'm going to discuss Arthashastra anyway. Just let me know if any of you is online. Just let me know if the volume is fine, if the mic volume is all right. And we have to discuss one other thing, that is uh, Jaipur dialogues have been gathering this database of all the small uh, seemingly unattached and uncoordinated attacks that have been happening on Hindus all over the country. And today they have finally released that database. It's called RULLS. We are going to check out that database and see if we find out and come to realize any interesting statistics and and see if we can find out any patterns to the attacks on Hindus. And we'll check which. Any comments here? ओके हिंदी स्क्रिप्ट में ही किसी ने कमेंट कर दिया, मुझे पढ़ना नहीं आता है. प्रणाम गुरुदेव. मैं गुरुदेव भाई. सुबह 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 शाम शाम को ट्रोल करना बंद करो भाई. चलो संजय दीक्षित जी का वो डेटाबेस देखते हैं, ठीक है. तो ये वॉल्यूम मेरा ठीक है कि ना, बता देना. RULLS, ठीक है. तो ये है रैंडम अनसीजिंग लो लेवल स्कैटर्ड वायलेंस. तो ऊपर से तो लगता है स्कैटर्ड, मगर चल रहा है कंटिन्यूअस. तो देखते हैं यहाँ पे क्या है. बहुत बहुत हार्ड वर्क किया है उनके टीम ने. तो देखते हैं सबसे ज़्यादा वायलेंस कहाँ पे है. नॉर्थ पे. विक्टिम्स एज पर रिलीजन, विक्टिम्स बाय कैटेगरी, विक्टिम्स एज पर रिलीजन, एज पर रीजन, वही सोच रहा था. नॉर्थ में 57.3%, वेस्ट में सबसे कम, ईस्ट में मतलब हमारे तरफ 18.1%, साउथ में 15.2%, नॉर्थ में सबसे ज़्यादा. और लव जिहाद से 35.8%, सबसे ज़्यादा लव जिहाद से. सोचो 19.8% मरे हैं रिलीजियस वायलेंस हिंदूज पे. पॉलिटिकल वायलेंस 18.6%, 25.8% है जेनरिक वायलेंस. तो एक मज़े की चीज़ देखो कि ये 57.3% जो नॉर्थ का वायलेंस है, दिस इज़ इंटरेस्टिंग बिकॉज you'll also see that least amount of terrorist attacks and stuff happen in Bengal because there's no resistance. No one's pissed off with the Hindus here. They are like dhimmis हैं तो छोड़ दो इन्हें. तो जहाँ पे रेजिस्टेंस है, where the Hindu is assertive, वहाँ पे मार पड़ने वाली है. तो इसलिए नॉर्थ में ही 57.3% अटैक्स है हिंदू पे. मर्डर्स बाय कैटेगरी 2022 में 2014 से पूरा ट्रैक किया है. वाई मोदी जी isn't doing anything? दिस इज़ एन इटर्नल क्वेश्चन, राइट. मेरा ओपिनियन है, ये थोड़ा अनपॉपुलर ओपिनियन है, कि द मोर मोदी जी विल हेल्प यू, द मोर कंप्लेसेंट यू विल गेट एज अ हिंदू, and therefore not do the actual constructive things, because ultimately Modi ji can only act like he is helping you, ठीक है. Modi ji can't actually do perfect protection for Hindus. Because Modi ji can't protect perfectly any group. Modi ji can't give perfect protection to Muslims. Modi ji can't perfectly protect children. Modi ji can't perfectly protect cute puppies. Modi ji can't perfectly protect women. Modi ji can't therefore also not perfectly protect Hindus. Groups में अगर सोचते हैं आप लोग, तो ऐसा होगा कि मोदी जी विल ओनली प्रिटेंड टू प्रोटेक्ट परफेक्टली हिंदूज, एंड उससे हिंदूज और भी कंप्लेसेंट हो जाएंगे, एंड देयरफॉर नॉट बी यूनाइटेड, not form Hindu consolidation, not take up fitness, not take up gun rights, not have self defense in their homes. तो इससे अच्छा है कि मोदी जी gives you the impression that he's not caring for you, and instead you take care of yourself and unite as Hindus with all other Hindus. The more Modi ji does, less is better. इतना तक ही है अभी. तो you can also search all names. देखते if I can see what are the West Bengal statistics. Select year 2021 का देखते हैं. Wow, these statistics are going to be so useful. Love jihad, love jihad, love jihad. Matigara, Jorabagan, North Kolkata. विक्टिम्स का नेम नॉट अवेलेबल. अक्यूज टीपू सुल्तान का नाम है. अच्छा, सब वेरीफाइड न्यूज़ रिपोर्ट भी है यहाँ पे. ऑफ इंडिया, जी हाँ, झारखंड. टीपू सुल्तान मैरिड प्रिटेंडेड टू बी हिंदू, लियोर्ड वुमेन एंड अरेस्टेड. मेदिनीपुर, उत्तर दिनाजपुर. सो सिर्फ 2021 में 5 केसेस. तब और थोड़ा इस लास्ट ईयर का देखते हैं. ओवरसीज़ का भी ऑप्शन है. अरे देखो, सर्च बटन में दबाना भी नहीं पड़ता है. यू जस्ट क्लिक ऑन 2022 एंड इट ऑटोमेटिकली कम्स. सच अ ग्रेट इंटरफेस दे हैव बिल्ट. 5 केसेस. बीरभूम, हुगली, विक्टिम 0. बोगटुइका 12. विक्टिम्स विलेज पीपल, अक्यूज जेल. इसमें तो मुस्लिम्स ही मारे गए थे. मुस्लिम ने मुस्लिम्स को मारा. बीरभूम इस्कॉन टेम्पल. ओह, इसके बारे में मुझको भी पता नहीं था. हिंदू पोस्ट. धर्मा. इस्कॉन मंदिर बर्न डाउन आफ्टर पास्ट फेल्ड अटेम्प्ट्स. ये है बांग्लादेश. लव जिहाद, वेस्ट बंगाल. हिंदू मैरिड बांग्लादेश मुस्लिम एंड रिटर्न्स. ये सब हुआ है. ये सब है 2024 का स्टैटिस्टिक्स, और ये सब अपडेट होने वाला है. ठीक है, और अब चलिए लेट्स स्टार्ट अर्थशास्त्र. तो I have discussed a bit of the Arthashastra in the beginning, not in the beginning of this video. I mean, the beginning of this Arthashastra I've discussed a bit in my videos, and you can go to my YouTube channel and search the playlist called Arthashastra. There you will find the introduction and all the discussions about why this new translations. There have been 2 translations so far, 3 translations so far. One by the person who discovered the Arthashastra, then another person, his name was R. Shama Shastri. Then R.P. Kangal translated it again, but those 2 translations became kind of obsolete because of its archaic English and the sentence construction. Then Mr. L.N. Rangarajan, a retired IFS, Indian Foreign Service employee, he was an ambassador to Greece, Colombia, many countries. He decided to translate this. So in the introduction, he has given a basic gist of Arthashastra. Those I have already discussed in my recorded pre-recorded videos. So here we will start with the chapter called more introductory sections. So I'm just skipping 2 pages of that introductory sections part today because it's under some general topics. In that some general topics, there's a section called value of money, where there's just discussions of what were the currencies and what were its values, how much paisa is equal to how much rupees. These were not the terms, but that's the basic terminology. That's the basic concept. So I'm going to skip that part so that it's more relevant, because this part you'll feel bored and you'll feel irrelevant. Like the currency was called pun. So for example, what was the pun worth? According to the salary list in chapter 5.3, which we will get to later, the highest salary paid in cash, excluding perquisites, that is perks, was 48,000 pun a year, and the lowest was 60,000 pun a year. The ratio of the highest salary to the lowest was 800 to 1. While we find that pun is prescribed as a maximum for a wife's endowment on marriage, we also see that the amount payable for redeeming a courtesan in the king's service was 24,000 pun. Amount payable for redeeming a courtesan in the king's service. Now, unfortunately, the original Arthashastra manuscript is about to destroy. Is it? Why? Isn't it protected? Isn't it protected in a glass-pressed sort of thing, I heard, in the National Archives? So, different... Okay, this is another small interesting part. An annual salary of 60 pund could be substituted by an adhaka of grain per day, enough for 4 meals of one male, Arya male. However, the wages of cowherds, laborers, and watchmen is prescribed as food in accordance with the numbers of persons dependent on the workmen, and in addition, a monthly wage of one and a quarter pund, that is 15 panas per annum. So you see, reading this out is very confusing. You can't follow. These stuff is better understood if you read it yourself. But it's not that important in my opinion. We'll get to the important fun parts in the very next chapter. This is a hardly 1.5 page chapter. But let's start from here. The lowest level standard penalty, the middle level standard penalty, these are the punishments and fines. Highest level standard penalty. So for depriving a person forcibly of articles made of materials such as copper, vritta, bronze, glass or ivory, the fine shall be not less than 48 punds and not more than 96 pund, and shall be called the lowest penalty for robbery with violence. Middle level standard penalty. For robbery with violence of large animals, human beings, land, house, money, gold or fine cloth, the fine shall be 200 to 500 pund. Highest level standard penalty, that is 500 to 1000 pund, for forcibly depriving a man or a woman of liberty, that is abduction, confinement, bondage, slavery. All this was illegal. Dekho, slavery is illegal. Or forcibly releasing a man or a woman from bondage or slavery, the fine shall be between 500 to 1000 pund. If someone is this slavery means that if someone cannot pay their fine, they'll have to work for that person. If you can't afford bail money and stuff, or if you can't afford to go to jail, if you can't afford to pay fine, because सब कुछ के लिए तो जेल है नहीं, कुछ चीज़ों के लिए फाइन ही तुम्हारा punishment है, and if you can't pay that fine, you will have to work for that person. So that is how this term slavery is coming in. This slavery does not mean African slavery. Okay, this is a small section. The fun part is going to be when we start discussing constituent elements of a state. I'll get to that very soon. Here thoda sa we'll discuss methods of dealing with conflicts. Conflict resolution kaise kare. These are not direct words of Chanakya himself. This is still the translator himself explaining in a brief gist. A well-known concept in Indian tradition is the set of 4 methods used in dealing with situations of potential or actual conflict. Samadhana, Bheda and Danda. That is, adopting a conciliatory attitude, or placating with rewards and gifts, or sowing dissension among enemies and using force. These are referred to in many different places in the text. A detailed consideration will be later understood. Weak king, chiefs of oligarchy. In the case of conciliation, the first 5 methods are mentioned in the chapter on edicts, and the last in connection with revolts within the country. Placating with gifts is elaborated in a later chapter. ये सब ऐसा ही है कि बाद में क्या क्या डिस्कशन होगा वो मेंशन कर रहे हैं. Okay, conciliation. There are 6 kinds. 1. Praising the merits of someone who is or likely to be inimical, appreciating the merits of the person's pedigree, personal qualities, occupation, good nature, learning or wealth, either personally or to third parties. This is a method of conciliation. उसके बारे में अच्छा ही बोलो. Mutual connections. Extolling common relationships such as blood relationships, relationship by marriage, a common teacher. हाँ तो हमारे अपने हैं, those kind of words. These are our civilizational memories of these kind of conciliatory methods. A common ritual system, common friends or family connections, etc. Then number 3, mutual benefits. तो इसमें तो हम दोनों का ही लाभ है, हमारा दोनों का ही फायदा है. Those kinds of words. Explaining the advantages that will accrue to each of the two parties, one's own side as well as the other side. Fourth way of conciliation is inducement. That is, raising the hopes of the other by pointing out the beneficial results that will accrue to both if a particular course of action is adopted. तो ये कर लो, इसमें दोनों का अच्छा है, दोनों का भला है. Identity of interest, shown by placing oneself at the other's disposal, saying, what I am art thou, the wealth that is mine is thine. मेरा क्या है, जो मेरा है वो आपका है. Use it as it please thee. See, it's so modern. I mean, it's not modern. We have remembered these things so much. It seems like a conversation you hear on a local train today. Number 6 is awards and honors. Giving a high rank or awarding an honor is also a method of conciliation, conciliating a potential internal enemy. तो ये तो आज के दिन में भी होता है. फिर placating with gifts. Rewarding with money, granting favors, exempting from taxes and giving employment. These are conciliations between conflicting parties inside the government. Gifts are of 5 kinds: relinquishing what is owed, continuing a payment already being made, return of something received, giving something new out of one's own wealth, permission to take something from the enemy. एक comment आया है. The original manuscript is actually written on palm leaves, yeah, which rot after a certain time, more than 1,000 years. I think it is stored with AC right now, though, so life is somewhat extended. And it's glass pressed, I've heard. Like it's pressed in a way that the glass itself has encompassed the core palm leaf material. Okay, so if you break the glass, then the palm leaf itself breaks. Then sowing dissension between two enemies is done by creating mutual suspicion between them or by threatening one of them. Number 4 is use of force. Force can be used to deprive a person of his property, liberty, or life, that is plunder, harassment, and death. War, particularly the use of force for capturing the enemy by open, deceptive, or secret war, and the methods for capturing a fort are mentioned later. This is an interesting section. Now we'll discuss that there is also some situations where you use a combination of these methods. Okay. তুমি কোন কোন সিনেমাতে সঙ্গীত পরিচালনা করেছো? আমি বিরাট কোনো সিনেমায় সঙ্গীত পরিচালনা করিনি. আমি রিক্সাওয়ালা বলে একটা 45 মিনিটের ফিচার ফিল্মে সঙ্গীত পরিচালনা করেছি. আর এছাড়া অনেক গান ফান অ্যারেঞ্জ করেছি. আমার দুটো বড় হিট হলো মোনামি ঘোষের একটা গান ভিটামিন এম বলে, সেটা আমি আর আমার দুটো বন্ধু মিলে অ্যারেঞ্জ করেছি. আমরা একটা টিম আর কি, একসাথেই আমরা কাজ করি. আর হলো নুমাইশ বলে একটা গান, কম্পোজারের নামটা ভুলে গেছি. নুমাইশ গানটা তো 1.1 মিলিয়ন ভিউ আছে. ওগুলো আমরা মানে আমাদের টিমটাই 3 জনে মিলে অ্যারেঞ্জ করা, মিক্স করা. আর তাছাড়া প্রচুর শর্ট ফিল্মে কাজ করেছি. Combination of methods in doing conciliations. The methods can be used singly or in combination depending on the seriousness of the situation. There are 4 ways of using any one method, 6 ways of using 2 at a time, 4 ways of using 3 of these methods, and 1 way of using all 4 simultaneously. We'll get to these in detail later. Thus, there are 15 ways of using these methods, singly or in any of the possible combinations in the anuloma, that is natural order. Likewise, there are 15 ways of using them in the pratiloma, that is the unnatural order. This is so mathematical. This is why, see, you'll have to remember that from everyone from Panini to Chanakya, they have mathematics in their thinking, in their basic operating methods. Their OS in their brain is very mathematical. Everything they say, the Hindu way is very mathematical and very physics oriented. The Hindu ethos, the Hindu way of thinking. If only one method is recommended, it is defined as, quote, placing a restriction, end quote. If a choice is suggested, so if Chanakya ends up recommending something, then it is defined as placing a restriction. If a choice is suggested, then it is an option, and if 2 or more are to be used together, then it is a combination. Okay, recommended methods. In the case of a son, a brother, or a kinsman, that is a family man, someone from belonging to your family, कोई भी फैमिली का, जितना भी दूर का हो, पास का हो, the appropriate methods are conciliation and placating with gifts in terms of conciliating conflicts. In the case of citizens of the city, the people of the countryside, or the army, placating with gifts or sowing dissension among them are the right methods. In the case of neighboring princes or forest chiefs, one should sow dissension or use force. This order is anuloma, natural, and therefore recommended. If the methods are used in reverse order, that is dana before sama or danda, or that, okay, if it's dana before sama or danda before bheda, it is pratiloma, that means unnatural. In the case of allies and enemies, a combination of methods ensures success because the different methods mutually reinforce each other. Some methods are ideal in some cases and render the use of others unnecessary. For example, conciliation is adequate for dealing with the enemy's ministers whose loyalty is uncertain, placating with gifts for traitorous ministers of the enemy, dissension in case of confederacies, and force against the powerful. Okay, now part 2. This is just a one page, 2 page chapter. After that, we'll get into the constituent elements of a state. That is where the real exciting things begin. I haven't read the full book. I have read just about 150 pages. We are right now in the 94th page. तो अभी है the state, its constituent elements and threats to them. यहाँ से बहुत फोकस करके सुनना है. Kautilya says, there cannot be a country without people and there is no kingdom without a country. The value of land is what man makes of it. Yes, all these are quotes from Chanakya himself. Then he says, it is the people who constitute a kingdom. Like a barren cow, a kingdom without people yields nothing. These seem obvious, but actually he's saying these things because he has presented Arthashastra like a technical paper. So he will give many citations. He will quote people like past scholars like Bharadwaj, Parasara, Pisuna, and he will say where I agree with them, where I disagree with them. So these are actually conclusions because all of them don't really agree with these points. Some of them say that the kingdom is more important than people. If the state is there, then people can come and go. Those sorts of opinions are there. That's why he's mentioning these things. Then he says, in the interests of the prosperity of the country, a king should be diligent in foreseeing the possibilities of calamities, try to avert them before they arise, overcome those which happen, remove all obstructions to economic activity, and prevent loss of revenue to the state. So you see, Indian economic system, at least according to the ideas of Chanakya, is not absolutely socialist and definitely not absolutely free market. It's a very nice middle of the road kind of economics, which is basically what is advocated by Vivek Debroy, Sanjeev Sanyal, those kind of people. See, remove all obstructions to economic activity. This is absolutely against what Nehru and commies believe in. In the very next sentence he says, prevent loss of revenue to the state. State ka revenue is paramount, though that has to come. But for that, obstructions to economic activity has to be removed. This is also what Yogi Adityanath kind of says, that wealth पहले बनाओ, फिर वो redistribute करेंगे. Wealth ही नहीं है तो क्या redistribution कर रहे हो? What the mistake that Marxists make, that is. Now, introduction to part 2. I don't think there's much to read here because they will just keep saying that what are the things we are going to discuss in future. Kautilya uses the word calamity, vyasana, in the precise sense of any event which weakens any constituent element of a state, thereby preventing it from being used to its full potential in the conduct of foreign policy or war. Then a lot of stuff mentioning what's coming later. Here's an interesting part. In describing the adversities to which the population might be subjected, Kautilya includes harassment by queens, kings' mistresses, princes, not princess, princes, multiple princes, ministers, customs officials, and traders. These are the things that harass the state. These are the things that might harass the general population. Queens, prostitutes, everyone, random princes. The threefold obligation of a king. Threefold obligation है. तो 3 layer का obligation है king का towards his people were thus rakshana, protection, palana, administration, and yogakshema, welfare. This welfare does not mean welfare state, that is socialism. That this does not mean that. Welfare here means just general लोगों का भला होना. That is yogakshema. The welfare aspect is most clearly brought out in chapter 4.3 on acts of God. We'll get to that later. Particularly the verses relating to famine. Each one of the constituent elements briefly mentioned. Constituent elements कौन है? Like the population, then the ministers, then the soldiers. All these are different constituent elements of a state. Councillors, etc. So each one of the constituent elements is fully developed in later parts of this translation. The Janapada and the city, the treasury, the army, and the ally. All these are different constituent elements. The Janapada in particular is covered in numerous places such as settlement of virgin land and the duties of the chancellor. One of the elements referred to is Amatya. If you see the Chanakya serial by Doordarshan, directed by Dr. Chandraprakash Dwivedi, which is available on YouTube, you will hear this term countless times. He's like a local MLA or local representative sort of councillor. One of the elements referred to is Amatya, translated as councillors, ministers, and high officials. There is some confusion in the text in the use of the terms amatya, mantri, and mantri parishad. All these are terms that we have inherited from at least Arthashastra. Can you believe it? Probably because the text, quote unquote, has preserved the terminology of the sources representing different stages in the process of development. In this translation, mantri is generally translated as councillor, one of the few close advisors of the king, amatya as minister or head of department, depending on the context, and mantri parishad as council of ministers. A detailed explanation is given in notes later. Kautilya does not simply list the various calamities that can affect each constituent element, but also indicates the relative seriousness by considering them in pairs. तो कौन से कैलामिटी को कितना सीरियसली लेना है वो भी डिस्कस होगा बाद में, अभी थोड़ी देर में. Examples are: a decadent king is worse than a decadent people. A favorite queen or mistress is worse than a wayward prince. These are the different comparative analysis that Kautilya gets into. Now we start a very interesting part: constituent elements of a state. The elements which constitute a state are the king, then the group of councillors, ministers, and other high officials, that is the amatya. Then 3, the territory of the state along with the population inhabiting it, that is the janpada. 4, the fortified towns and cities, the durga. Then the treasury, kosha, that is the wealth of the state. Then 6, the forces of defense and law and order, police, army, etc. And then 7, the allies of this kingdom. Firstly, we discuss the king. An ideal king, this is a quote from Chanakya himself, an ideal king is one who has the highest qualities of leadership, intellect, energy, and personal attributes. The qualities of leadership which attract followers are birth in a noble family, good fortune. So here he is not recommending anything. Here he is not saying what is right or wrong. He is simply observing and saying what is inevitable. So Chanakya is observing that what will help people gain and attract followers. That is birth in a noble family. थोड़ा ये नेपोटिज्म होगा ही लोगों में, तो ओ इसका बेटा है, हाँ बढ़िया बात. तो birth in a noble family, good fortune, intellect, prowess, association with elders, being righteous, truthful, resolute, enthusiastic, and disciplined, not breaking his promises, showing gratitude to those who helped him, having lofty aims, not being dilatory, being stronger than neighboring kings, and having ministers of high quality. So see, only the first point is birth in a noble family. उसके बाद और भी 10-12 point है. So if you don't have those 10-12 points and only have birth in a noble family, no one's going to give a shit. The qualities of intellect. What are the qualities of intellect that, according to Chanakya, a king must have in order to gain followership? Desire to learn. Because you know, as you must know, that Hindu mythology, philosophy, Dharma is all about the thirst of knowledge, knowledge seeking. I was started reading the Bengali Rig Veda. The very first line starts with He Gyanagni, or the second shloka, something. So worshipping knowledge is in our core ethos. So therefore, very obviously, the qualities of intellect are very first and foremost. The first and foremost quality of intellect for a king is desire to learn. सब समझ गया, सब जान गया हूँ, ये धारणा नहीं होना है किसी राजा में. Listening to others. Can you believe this? Desire to learn, listening to others, grasping, retaining, understanding thoroughly, and reflecting on knowledge. See, so many aspects just on knowledge. Rejecting false views and adhering to the true ones. क्या मना चो दादा? I'm good, भलो अच्छी. An energetic king. कौन है energetic king? An energetic king is one who is valorous, determined, quick, and dexterous. Dexterous meaning can handle multiple problems at the same time. Now, what are the personal attributes that a king must have? As regards personal attributes, an ideal king should be eloquent, should be well spoken, bold and endowed with a sharp intellect, a strong memory, and a keen mind. He should be amenable to guidance. लोगों का बात सुनना है, तुम्हारे advisors का बात सुनना है. He should be well trained in all the arts and be able to lead the army. He should be just. He should be fair in rewarding and punishing. He should have the foresight. He should know from beforehand to avail himself of the opportunities by choosing the right time, place and type of action. पहले से सोच के काम करना है. He should know how to govern in normal times and in times of crisis, because the ways of governing in a normal times won't be the same as governing in a time of crisis. So he should have nuances in his governance policies. He should know when to fight and when to make peace, when to lie in wait, and when to observe treaties, and when to strike at an enemy's weakness. He should preserve his dignity at all times and not laugh in an undignified manner. He should preserve his dignity at all times. He should be sweet in speech, look straight at people, and avoid frowning. So he basically should not be a petty man. Sweet in speech, look straight at people, avoid frowning. Always be calm. If you frown, you give away the fact that you are worried about something. Why should the king be worried? You should be on top of your game. That is the recommendation that Chanakya is making here. He should eschew passion, anger, greed, obstinacy, fickleness and backbiting. ये सब नहीं करना चाहिए. He should conduct himself in accordance with the advice of elders. Now, councillors and ministers. A councillor or minister of the highest rank should be a native of the state, born in a high family and controllable by the king. He should have been trained in all the arts and have logical ability to foresee things. He should be intelligent, persevering, dexterous, eloquent, energetic, bold, brave, able to endure adversities and firm in loyalty. He should neither be haughty, ज़्यादा arrogance नहीं होना है, nor fickle, weak भी नहीं होना है. He should be amicable and not excite hatred or enmity in others. Now this is a direct quote from Chanakya. The king should appoint advisors in different grades of the hierarchy, depending on how many of the qualities prescribed above they possess. So this is an interesting part. Chanakya was not giving out random qualities. Ke ye acha hona hai, ye acha hona hai, ye acha hona hai. This is again a very mathematical thinking by Chanakya. He was listing out particular things. So if he has given 15 particular qualities, exactly how many number of qualities you have among the ones qualities mentioned by Chanakya, that will be the rank you get. So that's like your qualification for becoming the minister. Exactly the number of qualities that you possess. Those who have all the qualities are to be appointed to the highest grade as councillors. Those who lack a quarter to the middle grades. Those who lack a quarter of those qualities, they will go to the middle grades as middle level ministers, and those who lack a half to the lowest level of councillors. Now the territory and the population. All economic activities relating to the fortified cities, the treasury, the army, waterworks, dams, etc., and trade have their source in the countryside, that is in the villages or the outskirts of the villages. The kingdom shall be protected by fortifying the capital and the towns at the frontiers. These are direct quotes from Chanakya. The land should not only be capable of sustaining the native population, but also outsiders when they come into the kingdom in times of calamities. तो calamities के time पे लोगों को थोड़ा help करना है. It should be easy to defend them from attacks by enemies and strong enough to control neighboring kingdoms. It should have productive land that is free from swamps, rocky ground, saline land, uneven terrain, deserts, as well as wild and unruly groups of people. Mukta Bharatiya. Seriously, why isn't there a proper course studying this? Last day we were discussing, that director of Delhi University screwed up that argument with the Marxist sociologists that Hindu studies करना है, and whatever they asked he couldn't reply anything. Hindu studies तो करना है इसीलिए. Hindu studies में थोड़ी सिर्फ और सिर्फ गीता पढ़ाना है. This is Hindu. He starts the chapter with Om, invokes ऋषि बृहस्पति. So Hindu studies में यही सब तो पढ़ाना है. ये तो modern diplomacy है. Yeah. तो इट शुड बी ब्यूटिफुल बीइंग एंडाउड विथ एरेबल लैंड जिसमें फार्मिंग हो सके, arable land, mines, timber forests, elephant forests, and good pastures rich in cattle. I don't remember if I discussed this, but this is one of my favorite aspects of the Arthashastra, okay? Based on just the 100 and 150 pages that I've read. Chanakya recommends having three kinds of forests in the land, okay? One is just for recreation. आप घूमेंगे फिरेंगे, थोड़ा बहुत शिकार करेंगे. Wait, let me see if I can find it. Yeah, here it is. Yeah. So forests are two kinds broadly, productive forests and non-productive forests. तो productive forests में क्या है? For produce, that is wood वगैरह. And then elephant forests, वहाँ से elephant capture करना है, train करना है अपने army के लिए. These are the two kinds of productive forests. Then there are three kinds of non-productive forests. One is reserved for ascetics, साधुओं के लिए, साधु संतों के लिए, सन्यासी के लिए. Two is for recreation, सिर्फ राजा रानी के साथ घूमेगा, थोड़ा फल वल खाएगा इसलिए. एंड द थर्ड इज़ वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरीज, सिर्फ प्राणी जंतुओं के रहने के लिए, वहाँ पे हंटिंग नहीं होगा. वाइल्ड लाइफ सेंचुरीज में हंटिंग होगा या रिक्रिएशन में हंटिंग होगा, ये मेरे आई डोंट रिमेंबर, ये थोड़ा बाद में डिस्कस होगा. बट एनीवे दीज आर द 5 काइंड्स ऑफ फॉरेस्ट बेसिकली. तो लैंड है थ्री टाइप्स का. एडेबल लैंड ही है 3 टाइप्स का, ओके. क्राउन लैंड जो कि स्टेट गवर्नमेंट का है, स्टेट मतलब स्टेट विद कैपिटल एस, किंगडम का है, किंग का है क्राउन लैंड. प्राइवेट लैंड किसी आदमी का है. और फिर पेस्चर्स, ये कॉमन लैंड है, यहाँ पे फार्मिंग होना है. रिजर्वॉयर्स पानी जमा करने के लिए, पॉन्ड्स वगैरह, वो भी 2 टाइप का है. क्राउन का प्रॉपर्टी है और प्राइवेट प्रॉपर्टी है. माइंस दो टाइप का है, क्राउन ऑपरेटेड एंड ऑल्सो लीज टू प्राइवेट ऑपरेटर्स. एंड अदर टाइप्स ऑफ लैंड, अदर्स के अंदर आता है लैंड सूटेबल फॉर सेटलमेंट, तो अगर कोई रिफ्यूजी वगैरह आए, एंड वेस्ट लैंड. Let me read some comments. Chanakya, also known as Kautilya, was the first author of Arthashastra, Science of Capital. In the modern world, Karl Marx was the author of Das Kapital on the same subject. Who are the authors on the same subject between the period of Chanakya 400 BC to Karl Marx 1850 AD? थॉमस मैकियावेली, पता नहीं. भांजे सर्जरी कैसी रही? कैची अंदर भूल तो नहीं है. सर्जरी वॉज फाइन, अभी रिकवरी चल रहा है. 6 तारीख को मेरा स्टिच काटने के लिए जाना है. और अगर हर दिन का स्लीप वगैरह ठीक रहे, जैसे कि कल लाइव स्ट्रीम नहीं कर पाया क्योंकि पिछले रात को सो नहीं पाया था दर्द से, तो इसलिए कल लाइव स्ट्रीम नहीं कर पाया, पूरा दिन ही सोया मैं. तो अगर हर दिन का रात का स्लीप ठीक रहेगा तो हर दिन ही शाम को इस टाइम पे या 9-10 बजे लाइव स्ट्रीम करूँगा. अच्छा, अभी द फोर्ट, वेल वी आर डिस्कसिंग कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट एलिमेंट्स. फोर्ट में अभी एक लाइन में ही छोड़ दिया है, बाद में सब डिटेल में जाएंगे. For the planning and construction of forts and fortified towns, which are the 4th constituent element, we'll get into chapter 4.1. Treasury, the kosha. The wealth of the state shall be one acquired lawfully, either by inheritance or by the king's own efforts. It shall consist of gold, silver, precious gems, and gold coins. It should be large enough to enable the country to withstand a calamity, even of long duration, during which there is no income. So, देखो, this is the basic difference between what Shah Jahan did while he was making the Taj Mahal and the general poverty, भूखमरी, famine तो drought होने से होना ही है, मगर the poverty that we were so accustomed to seeing when we are growing up in India, कि ये भिखारी देश है, during the colonial period, during the medieval period, all this did not happen during ancient period because they always knew grains भी store करना है, पैसा भी स्टोर करके रखना है. सब कुछ अभी आया तो अभी उड़ा के ताजमहल बना दो, ऐसा नहीं है. द फोर्सेस, आर्म्ड फोर्सेस. द आर्मी शैल कंसिस्ट मोस्टली ऑफ मेन ऑफ टेस्टेड लॉयल्टी, क्षत्रियज हैविंग कम डाउन फ्रॉम द किंग्स फादर एंड ग्रैंडफादर. द सोल्जर शुड बी स्ट्रॉन्ग, ओबीडियंट, नॉट एवर्स टू लॉन्ग एक्सपेडिशंस. नॉट एवर्स टू मतलब लॉन्ग एक्सपेडिशंस में जाने में घबराने वाला नहीं चाहिए. विथ पावर्स ऑफ एंड्योरेंस, skill in handling all weapons and experience of many battles. They should keep their wives and sons contented. बीवी और सन को खुश रखना है. अगर उनका दिमाग हिल जाए तो तुम्हारा वर्क एज अ सोल्जर भी अफेक्टेड होगा. तो they have to keep their wives and sons contented. They should have no interest other than that of the king and should share his prosperity and adversity. So beautiful. should share his prosperity and adversity. तो जो प्रॉब्लम है वो भी शेयर करो अपने बाकी सोल्जर दोस्तों के साथ, जो प्रॉस्पेरिटी है वो भी शेयर करो. देखते और कुछ कमेंट आया क्या. बांग्लादेशी इन्फिल्ट्रेटर्स को हेल्प नहीं करना है, बस हिंदू रिफ्यूजीज को हेल्प करना है. हाँ, अभी तो टाइम अलग है, तब का तो टाइम अलग था ना. विश यू गुड रिकवरी ब्रो, थैंक यू. अभी एलाई, किंगडम का एलाई कौन है, उसको कैसे हैंडल करना है. द आइडियल एलाई इज वन हु हैज़ द फॉलोइंग क्वालिटीज़: अ फ्रेंड ऑफ द फैमिली, राजा का फैमिली फॉर अ लॉन्ग टाइम, कॉन्स्टेंट, एमेनेबल टू कंट्रोल में रहना चाहिए, पावरफुल इन हिज सपोर्ट, शेयरिंग अ कॉमन इंटरेस्ट, एबल टू मोबिलाइज हिज फोर्सेज क्विकली एंड नॉट अ मैन हु डबल क्रॉसेज हिज फ्रेंड्स. तो एलाई तो आज के दिन में एलाई टर्म तो चाणक्य ने यूज़ नहीं किया है. जैसे कि आज आप लोगों ने जयशंकर जी का रिसेंट ऑस्ट्रिया का वो टीवी एंकर के साथ डिबेट देखा क्या. जयशंकर ने फिर से एकदम वायरल होने वाला कमेंट्स कर दिया. तो ही वॉज सेइंग के मेन पॉइंट वॉज दैट ही वॉज सेइंग इफ यू आर डिप्लोमैट यू आर सेइंग दैट यू आर सपोज टू यूज डिप्लोमैटिक लैंग्वेज, वाई आर यू सेइंग थिंग्स लाइक पाकिस्तान इज द एपिसेंटर ऑफ टेररिज्म. तो जयशंकर सेड, अरे मैं डिप्लोमैट हूँ इसलिए एपिसेंटर बोल रहा हूँ, नहीं तो और भी बहुत कुछ बोल देता. तो उसके पहले ऑस्ट्रिया का एंकर ने पूछा कि तो रशिया क्या है, रशिया आपका एलाई है. तो जयशंकर ने बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग चीज़ कहा कि एलाई वैलाई ये सब टर्म हम यूज़ नहीं करते, ये सब आप लोग यूज़ करते हैं. हमारा कुछ चीज़ों में कॉमन इंटरेस्ट है, दैट्स ऑल. एलाई, दोस्त, भाई, भतीजावाद ये रशिया के साथ हमारा नहीं है. तो एलाई इस टर्म पे भी वैसा ही है. इन एलाई वर्ड यहाँ पे ट्रांसलेटर ने यूज़ कर दिया है, बट सी ऑल दीज फिट्स फॉर नॉट ऑल दीज, सम ऑफ दीज फिट फॉर आर सिचुएशन विथ रशिया, दैट्स ऑल. Okay, the king in relation to the other constituents. King ka relation with all these different constituents that we discussed, the kosha, the soldiers, the ally, this way. It's so beautifully analyzed, very lucidly, paper presentation की तरह political science का. The ideal, however ideal the other constituent elements of the state may be, they are all subordinate to the qualities of the king. ये चाणक्य का ओपिनियन है जिसके साथ बाकी स्कॉलर्स जिनको चाणक्य जी बार बार कोट करेंगे वो लोग अग्री नहीं करते हैं. हाउएवर द आइडियल कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट्स, क्योंकि कुछ लोग बोलेंगे कि द कोशा इज़ मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, कुछ लोग बोलेंगे द एलाई इज़ मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट, कुछ लोग बोलेंगे कैसा लैंड है तुम्हारे पास वो इंपॉर्टेंट है, कुछ लोग बोलेंगे कि कैसा बॉर्डर है वो इंपॉर्टेंट है. ये सब डिफरेंट ओपिनियंस है एंड चाणक्य विल डिस्कस ऑल ऑफ दोज. What do you think about him saying Bangladeshi diplomacy is good, something along those lines? A lot of pages were craving about it. I don't know about this Mukta Bhartiya. तो whatever the जितना भी अच्छा बाकी constituent elements हो, they are all subordinate, come secondary after the qualities of the king. A king endowed with the ideal personal qualities, जो we were discussing in the last 10 minutes. A king endowed with the ideal personal qualities enriches the other elements when they are less than perfect. तो बाकी अगर perfect ना भी हो, किंग का पर्सनल क्वालिटी अच्छा हो तो बाकी सब कुछ भी लाइन पे आ जाएगा. ऑन द अदर हैंड, अ वीक और विकेड किंग विदाउट डाउट डिस्ट्रॉयज द मोस्ट प्रॉस्परस एंड लॉयल एलिमेंट्स ऑफ द किंगडम. तो बाकी सब कुछ अगर परफेक्ट भी हो, किंग खुद अच्छा ना हो, तब सब कुछ जानू में जाने वाला है. जानू इज नॉट अ नाइस वर्ड, but we grew up with this. But anyway, this is the personal opinion of Chanakya, with which people like scholars like Bharadwaj, Pisuna, Parasara, they don't agree. An unrighteous and vicious king, however mighty an emperor, is sure either to be killed by his infuriated subjects or subjugated by his enemies. And this Chanakya is obviously speaking from his own experience, because he himself did this with Chandragupta Maurya when he dismantled the kingdom of Nanda. What was his name? Dhananand, of the Nanda dynasty. A wise king, though only ruling over a small territory, will surely conquer the world if he gathers round him the best as the other constituent elements. King को wise होना है, फिर best लोगों को अपने पास रखो, then you'll conquer the world. Most likely, I'm reading a comment, most likely those who were interviewing Dr. Jaishankar think saying epicenter of terrorism is Islamophobic. अब तो मुझे लगता है कि डॉक्टर जयशंकर को लोग ये चैनल वगैरह बुलाते ही है सिर्फ वायरल कंटेंट बनाने के लिए, और तो कुछ अचीव नहीं हो रहा है उन लोगों का. दे नो दैट कुछ भी ऐसा ही उल्टा पुल्टा बोल दो जयशंकर को, वो भी करारा जवाब दे देंगे. इंडिया के 100 करोड़ लोग बैठ के देखेंगे, लेफ्टिस्ट गाली देंगे, मगर देखेंगे तो ज़रूर. तो दैट इज़ द थिंग दैट आई थिंक ऑल मीडिया हाउसेज हैव फिगर्ड आउट. हर वीक में कोई ना कोई एक समिट कर रहा है और समिट में जयशंकर को बुला रहा है जस्ट टू गेन सम वायरल कंटेंट. What a funny time to live in. The biggest influencer in the country right now is the external affairs minister. Can you believe it? When we were growing up, how many external affairs minister do you even remember? The last one I remember is Sushma Swaraj ji. Before that, I don't remember anyone who was the external affairs minister. One reason might be that I am now 30 years old. That's why I'm more interested in these things. But I was always interested in politics. I don't remember anyone. So the biggest influencer, biggest social media influencer in the country is the country's foreign affairs, external affairs minister. What a great time to be alive. So now a very important part again on adversities. Calamities and adversities. This is one of my favorite chapters among the little Arthashastra reading that I've done. That which deprives vyasyati, a person of his strength and goodness, is a vyasana, that is a vice, adversity or calamity. We need to consider the adversities that can affect the constituent elements of a state, because when more than one element is affected, or when the would-be conqueror and the enemy are both affected, the king has to decide whether to attack or to adopt a defensive posture. बहुत complex analysis है यहाँ पे. Calamities can be due to acts of God or men and may arise from misfortune or bad policies. The following are to be considered as calamities. 1. When any of the constituent elements, that is soldier, kosha, land, etc., when any of these constituent elements has characteristics opposite to those described as ideal. So let's say the kosha is supposed to be full. If the kosha is not full, then it's supposed to be a calamity. The land is supposed to be this way. If the land is not that way, then it's a calamity. Agar land is getting flooded, then it's a calamity, obviously. If the soldier is not this, the qualities we discuss, then it's a calamity. If the ally is not those things, it's a calamity. That way. So when any of the constituent elements has characteristics opposite to those described as ideal in the previous section, then it's a calamity. Then number 2, when one of the elements is absent, अगर यहाँ पे से वो जो 5-6 constituent elements थे, अगर एक चले ही जाए, then it's a big calamity, such as not having an adequate treasury or a good ally. Number 3, a great defect such as a disaffected population. पूरे population का दिमाग खराब होके रखा है, then that's a calamity. Personal vices, personal खामियाँ, such as addiction to women and gambling, जैसे कि धनानंद का था, that's a calamity. तो राजा खराब होना is a calamity itself to the state. That is Chanakya's opinion. And then natural calamities like fire and flood. Some teachers have said that. See, this is where Chanakya presents Arthashastra like a technical paper. He quotes other people, says he agrees with them, disagrees with them. These are all citations, okay? Some teachers have said that of the calamities befalling the king, the ministers, the populated territory, the fort, the treasury, the army, and the ally, that which affects the one mentioned earlier in the order is more serious than that affecting one later. So this is according to the other teachers. Other teachers, however, this is what some teachers are saying कि इस order में होगा king, उसके बाद ministers, फिर populated territory, then fort, then kosha, then army, and then the ally. This is the priority list, जिसके हिसाब से किसको calamity आए वो कितना important है kingdom के लिए. That is the priority list. On the other hand, other teachers have said that a calamity of a constituent lower in order could sometimes be more serious than that of the one immediately preceding. तो कुछ टीचरों ने, कुछ स्कॉलर्स ने ये पूरा लिस्ट ही उल्टा कर दिया है. पूरा नीचे से शुरू होगा कि a calamity for the ally is most important, calamity for the army is second most important, that way. Order of priority, kings and ministers. Now we get to Chanakya's opinion, and now he gives a citation from Bharadwaja, and you all know Bharadwaja Gotra. So Bharadwaja was the grandson of Rishi Brihaspati, and Rishi Shandilya and Rishi Bharadwaja were both students of Rishi Brihaspati. I think Bharadwaja and Shandilya are also brothers-in-law, as far as I remember. So Chanakya is now quoting Bharadwaja, Bharadwaja is of the view that a calamity befalling a minister is more serious than that of the king. His reasoning is that a great deal of state activity depends on ministers. Deliberation, ground level ka kaam, deliberation in council, acting on such deliberation, implementing the decisions made, collecting revenue and meeting expenditure, enforcing order, defending the kingdom from enemies and jungle tribes, taking remedial measures against calamities, protecting princes, and ensuring the succession of the heir apparent. In the absence of ministers, अगर ये ministers ना हो तो all the above activities are not done properly, and the king, like a bird with clipped wings, loses the ability to act. This is Chanakya's quote. The enemy then finds it easy to intrigue against the king. So if the minister is weakened, if the minister is not being able to, if he has befallen some calamity and he can't execute all those jobs, then the king will be vulnerable and king ka satyanash hoga. An unreliable minister close to the king threatens his very life. And Kautilya disagrees. It is the king alone who appoints the councillors, the purohita, and the other high officials. He directs the activities of heads of departments, takes countermeasures against calamities. Back online, no? Net connection was gone. Hakaishin God is here. I can see that you're commenting something, but I can't read your comment. So I guess the net is back. I'll continue. So Kautilya, in his disagreement with Rishi Bharadwaj, is saying that minister is not most important, because minister jaye to king can appoint another minister. But Rishi Bharadwaj is saying that minister will be executing all those things. If he is gone, then the king is already weakened. But Chanakya has more belief in the king because he has already qualified some other things for the king. No, so he's saying my king, the king that I am prescribing, is more qualified. So he is not going to be weakened just because the minister is gone. So he'll be strong. He'll appoint a new minister and काम चलते रहेगा. A good king is ever diligent in rewarding those who are worthy and in punishing the traitors. When the king is endowed with all that is good, he enriches all other constituents by his own prosperity. Whatever character the king has, the other elements also come to have the same. राजा का जो कैरेक्टर है, जो अच्छाई है, वो थोड़ा बहुत इन्फेक्टेड हो ही जाएगा बाकी कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट्स में. The other elements also come to have the same, for they are all dependent on him for their progress or downfall. Because the king is to the state like for the king is to the state like a head to a body. That is Chanakya's view. Okay, then the minister and the janpad. Now another citation and then his agreements and disagreements with another scholar. According to Vishalaksha, a calamity affecting the populated territory, the janpad, is more serious than the one affecting the minister, because out of the territory and the people one obtains the treasury, the army, forest produce, laborers, means of transport and commodities. One cannot secure any of these if a calamity affects the territory and the people, and as a result soon there will be neither minister nor king. Kautilya disagrees. All state activities have their origin in the minister, whether these be the successful execution of works or the benefit of the territory and the population, maintenance of law and order, protection of enemies, tackling natural calamities, settlement of virgin lands, recruiting the army, revenue collection or rewarding the worthy. All this is done by the minister. तो टेरिटोरी से ज़्यादा इम्पॉर्टेंट नहीं है. टेरिटोरी का कैलामिटी से ज़्यादा टेरिटोरी का कैलामिटी इज नॉट मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट दैन द कैलामिटी टू द मिनिस्टर. इन दिस केस द मिनिस्टर इज मोर इम्पॉर्टेंट. द जनपदा वर्सेस द फोर्ट्स, इसमें कौन इंपॉर्टेंट ज़्यादा है? द फॉलोअर्स ऑफ परासरा, अनदर ऋषि, अनदर स्कॉलर, followers of Parasara consider a calamity to the fortified towns to be more serious than one to the territory and the people outside the towns, because the treasury and the army are both situated inside the fortifications. तो जो fortified town है वो परासर के स्टूडेंट्स के मुताबिक that is the most important and most vulnerable. सबसे प्रायोरिटी ज़्यादा उसको देना है, क्योंकि treasury and the army are both situated inside the fortifications, where the people can take refuge in times of trouble. The people of the town are more powerful and, being more loyal, are of greater help to a king in trouble. The people outside the fortified towns are common to the king and the enemy. When they're conquered by the enemy, they transfer their allegiance. These are the people outside the fortified towns, so they are not important, according to Parasara. But Kautilya disagrees. For the fort, the treasury, and the army all depend on the people. So do the water reservoirs. All economic activity has its source in the countryside. Bravery, stability, and cleverness are also found among the country people, villagers. So they are also more numerous. If there is no populated territory, remote forts in mountains and islands would remain unoccupied. However, Kautilya also adds that if a country consists predominantly of agriculturalists, the calamity to the fortifications would be more serious. सिर्फ किसान होने से नहीं चलेगा. Conversely, in a country inhabited mostly by martial people, सिर्फ अगर क्षत्रिय लोग हो, then calamity to the comparatively more limited country territory would be more serious. So then if a calamity falls to agriculturalists, while the country is majorly made up of kshatriyas, then it's a big problem. And if the country is made up of mainly agriculturalists and the calamity befalls the fortified city on kshatriyas, then it's a big problem. तो जो कम है उसके ऊपर ज़्यादा आएगा तो प्रॉब्लम ही होगा, but so it has to be balanced. Then the fort versus the kosha, the treasury. Scholar and Rishi Pisuna thinks that a calamity to the treasure is more serious than that of the fort, arguing that the building, maintenance, and repair of forts depend on finance. With wealth, one's own people, allies, and the people of the enemy can be kept under control. The people inside an enemy's fort can be tempted to defect. Those in the enemy's countryside can be incited to vacate the land, and the army can be managed better. It is possible to remove the treasury in times of danger, but not the fort. Kautilya disagrees. A fort has many uses. The treasury is kept safe there and the army is well protected in it. It is from the fort that secret war is waged, one's own people controlled, allies received, and enemy troops and jungle tribes kept at bay. In the absence of a fort, the treasury will fall into the hands of enemies. It is well known that those with forts are not destroyed. So, between fort and treasury, Chanakya is saying that the fort is more important than the kosha. Fort rahega to kosh rahega. Then between treasury, kosha, and the army, which is more important? Here Chanakya cites Konapadanta, Rishi Konapadanta. Konapadanta considers a calamity to the army to be worse than a calamity to the treasury. According to Konapadanta, army is more important than treasury. Army ke upar kuch aaya to that's a bigger problem than treasury. One is dependent on the army for controlling allies and enemies, winning over an enemy's army and reinforcing one's own. Ye sab band ho jayega. In the absence of an army, the treasury is sure to be lost. Whereas even without finance, an army can be used not only to collect raw material and agricultural produce, but also to seize enemy land. Eventually, the treasury can be replenished by the army. Being close to the king, the army is like the minister, and the calamity to it has to be ranked as high as that of a minister. Kautilya disagrees. It is the army which is dependent on finance. पैसा नहीं देंगे तो आर्मी कहाँ से रहेगा? If not paid, the soldiers either go over to the enemy or kill the king. Finance is necessary to undertake any state endeavor and is the chief means for both dharma, that is righteous duty, and kama, enjoyment. However, Kautilya adds that the relative importance of the army and the treasury may depend on the circumstances. The time, the place, and the nature of the task determine which is more important, because the army is sometimes the means of acquiring and protecting the treasury. But the treasury is always the means of acquiring wealth as well as the army. तो कभी कभी आर्मी प्रोटेक्ट करेगा ट्रेजरी को, वेल्थ को, कोशा को, मगर कोशा हमेशा प्रोटेक्ट करेगा आर्मी को. On the whole, the calamity to the treasury, the kosha, is more serious since it affects all others. कमेंट्स आ रहा है क्या? हकाशिन गॉड का एक कमेंट देख रहा हूँ, ये बफर हो रहा है, उसके बाद किसी का कमेंट नहीं आया. Guys, let me know if all audio and video is working. Okay, now the army versus ally. दोस्त ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है कि अब खुद का आर्मी ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट है? बिटवीन दीज टू, ऋषि वटव्याधि says that a calamity to the latter, calamity to the ally, दोस्त का calamity to the ally is more serious than the calamity to the army. An ally, though far away, helps even without being paid. That is Vatavyadhi's argument. He repels the enemy in the rear, the allies of the enemies in the front, and the subdued tribes. He also helps the king with money, troops, and land in times of trouble. Kautilya disagrees. When one has an army, the ally continues to be friendly, and even the enemy becomes a friend. इस मैटर में Chanakya is saying that the army is more important than the ally. The army is more important. The army may not be more important than the treasury, but the army is definitely more important than the ally. Okay. Any update on the PhD students' take on the new Indic course being introduced? Oh, I was checking out the comment section. 2-3 great comments came. 2 right-wingers commented, Indic wingers commented, and one of our friends, Renita Mazumdar, she only gave a great counter argument. I think she didn't even, the person who posted the original status, she even didn't understand that Renita Mazumdar woman's argument. तो उसने जाके like कर दिया. But Renita Mazumdar actually gave a very good argument. So Kautilya disagrees. When one has an army, the ally continues to be friendly, and even the enemy becomes a friend. However, when there is work that can be done equally well by his own army and that of the ally, the king should choose the appropriate instrument depending on the circumstances, that is, the time, the place, and the nature of the action. Sthana kala patra. That is why he is saying the time, the place, and the nature of the action. And on whichever is more profitable. That is what king should focus on. But the king must remember that no ally can be relied upon in cases of speedy expedition, internal rebellion, or subduing jungle tribes. In case both the king and the enemy suffer from calamities, or when the enemy grows stronger, an ally only looks to his own interests and maintains the alliance only if it is profitable to him. And that is why Chanakya is saying that the ally is not as important as the army. To summarize, Kautilya generally agrees with the accepted teaching that a calamity of a constituent higher in the order is more serious than that affecting one lower. जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली का जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट एलिमेंट्स का जो हायरार्की था प्रायोरिटी का, उसके साथ जो पहले बोला था बाय सेइंग दैट सम टीचर्स से, उसी के साथ कौटिल्य अग्री कर रहे हैं पूरी तरह से. देयर आर हाउएवर सम इंपॉर्टेंट क्वालिफिकेशंस, दैट मीन्स सम एक्सेप्शंस. द रिलेटिव इंपॉर्टेंस ऑफ द कंट्री साइड एंड द फोर्ट्स depends on whether there is population balance between the two. A calamity to a weaker constituent is a more serious one. Though the treasury is almost always more important, there may be circumstances when a threat to the army should be considered more serious. Kings must also remember that 5 of the other 6 constituents excepting the ally are domestic and hence more under his control. Allies are not to be considered reliable in all circumstances. So just to summarize, if someone has joined later on, so there are 7 constituent elements in the kingdom. There are 7 divisions: the king, group of councillors, ministers, etc., the territory of the state, that is the janpad, the fortified towns, the treasury, the forces, and the allies. So except ally, everything else is domestically controlled inside the kingdom. Okay, now in case of partial calamity, a constituent element does not become totally useless just because it is affected. Depending on the particular nature of the calamity, the extent of the calamity, the loyalty and strength of the other serviceable parts of the same element may be enough to accomplish a task. Even if the king cannot save the whole of a constituent assembly, that is the kosha or the land or the army, he shall try to save a part of it. Perfection के पीछे मत भागो. अभी simultaneity. When 2 elements are affected equally, two constituent elements are affected equally, they should be judged according to whether the damage is increasing or decreasing, so long as neither of them affects any other element. Now a direct quote from Chanakya. When 2 elements are equally and simultaneously affected, that which is likely to suffer increasing damage should be considered more serious. फ्यूचर में कौन किसका डैमेज ज़्यादा होने वाला है उसको ज़्यादा प्रायोरिटी दो. However, if the calamity to one element is likely to affect the other elements, if one element's damage is not going to increase but it's going to affect more of the other elements, then that should be considered more serious. Order of priority. The following verses in the chapter on the priorities of a king about to go on a military expedition but faced with a wrong acquisition on one side and uncertainty on the other are relevant. Chanakya writes, "The conqueror shall save from misfortune, one by one, the constituents of his state in this order." Conqueror, if a new king or a new कोई नया जगह conquer किया है, in that case, the conqueror shall save from misfortune, one by one, किसको बचाए? The constituents of his state in order of their importance. Because it is better that the ally remains in danger but not the army. Likewise, let the army be in danger, not the treasury. If the constituent as a whole cannot be saved, at least parts shall be rescued. That is, in the case of the army, the more numerous or the more loyal troops shall be saved, leaving out the sharp and the greedy. In the case of the treasury, the most valuable or the most useful part of the kosha shall be saved. The least important constituents or part of constituents shall be saved by peace, inactivity, or a dual policy, and the most important by other means, seeking help, preparing for or actually waging war. Lastly, a calamity which threatens to destroy all other elements shall be considered as the most serious, irrespective of what position the element affected occupies in the list of priorities. Here the chapter ends. उसके बाद a chapter on just calamities. I don't think I've read this part. This is where I'll read for the first time along with you guys. How many of you are online? 5 guys. 5 people. That's fine. So is the timing okay for you guys, or should I continue some other day? Let me know in the comments. Okay, I'm about to finish second chapter of JSDs today. 20% done. What's your take on Suhail Seth? He's so articulate, but he's partly oriented and has some bad allegations on him. Was thinking of getting his book. I actually have a video on Suhail Seth, okay? So check that out. Suhail Seth one day was saying very colonialized things about that. I grew up in Bengal. There's no discussion of religion and stuff in Bengal. That's so good. So that is problematic. So there's no discussion of religion in Bengal, which is the basic core problems of the things we face, core foundations of the problems we face in Bengal. So Suhail Seth should understand that, and I have countered that. It's a very old video of mine, about a year back. So you'll have to search by writing College Street, Kolkata, Suhail Seth, and I was reacting to his interview on Advaita Kala's podcast only. So check that out. What happened to Manusmriti? Manusmriti I'll do on alternate days. Maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow. One day I'll discuss Arthashastra and the other day I'll discuss Manusmriti. So right now we'll get into calamities of the population. 5 people are still watching, I think, so we'll continue. A variety of calamities can afflict the population of a state. Most of them living in the countryside, outside the fortified towns. The sufferings of the people could be due to acts of God or acts of men. Acts of God are mentioned in the text in a variety of chapters, and calamities brought about by men are more numerous. The army either owns one's own army or the enemy's army, or those near the king, such as his favorite wife or a mistress or a princess. All these people and their harassment are considered to be calamities. There may be civil strife among the people or among the members of the royal family. The king and the people may become lax, giving themselves over to pleasure. There may be marauding fighting units or oppression by chiefs, high-ranking ministers, and custom officials. Traders may make exorbitant profits at the cost of the people. Common lands may be seized by nobles. All these are calamities. Highway robbers and jungle tribes may harass the population. Any of these affects the welfare and contentment of the people and thereby weakens the nation. In line with his habit of exhausting all possibilities of a subject, Kautilya also adds his advice on 2 topics: the effect of calamities on common people and on chiefs, and the target population for relief works. Now, acts of God. In general, acts of God में क्या क्या आता है? Calamities due to acts of God are fire, floods, diseases, epidemics, and famine, obviously. Other calamities of divine origin are rats, wild animals, snakes, and evil spirits. It is the duty of the king to protect the people from all these calamities. Whenever danger threatens, the king shall protect all those afflicted like a father protects his children, and shall organize continuous day and night prayers with oblations. All such calamities can be overcome by propitiating gods and Brahmins. When there is drought or excessive rain or visitations of evil, the rites prescribed in the Atharva Veda and those recommended by ascetics, that is sadhus, shall be performed. Therefore, experts in occult practices and holy ascetics shall be honored and thus encouraged to stay in the country so that they can counteract the calamities of divine origin. Worship with offerings, oblations, and recitals of benediction shall be organized on full moon and new moon days against different calamities as follows. फायर का कैलामिटी हो तो वर्शिप ऑफर्ड टू अग्नि गॉड ऑफ फायर. कैलामिटी का फ्लड का कैलामिटी हो तो वर्शिप ऑफर्ड टू रिवर्स. रैट्स का कैलामिटी हो तो वर्शिप ऑफर्ड टू रैट्स. वाइल्ड एनिमल्स का कैलामिटी हो तो वर्शिप ऑफर्ड टू माउंटेन्स. स्नेक्स का कैलामिटी हो तो वर्शिप ऑफर्ड टू नागा द कोबरा डिविनिटी. evil spirits का कैलामिटी हो तो वर्शिप ऑफर्ड टू चैत्यास. Offerings made to chaityas may include umbrellas, food, small flags, and goat meat. Okay, fire. Villagers shall do their cooking during the summer months outside their houses. They shall always have the 10 firefighting implements. तो firefighting का precaution measures भी है. The responsibilities of the municipal administration and the citizens for preventing outbreaks of fire in the more crowded cities are given in detail in the chapters of civic responsibility and municipal regulations. We'll get there later. The verses also include a set of punishments. Some verses also on acts of God deal with occult remedies. Tantra. Occult remedies for warding off dangers to the royal palace from fire, snakes, and poison. Bhanje, even after fighting for 1,000 years, why didn't our Kshatriya trace invaders back to their home and destroy them, or understand Islamic ideology or convert them? तो ये तो actually 3-part question है, and 3 questions are absolutely different and separate. Okay, तो why didn't our Kshatriya trace invaders back to their home and destroy them? Because that is not in our Dharma, I guess. कि यहाँ तो डिफेंस कर लिया, हो गया काम, छोड़ो, अब फिर वहाँ जाके क्यों झमेला करना है. और अगर वो करना पड़ता उसके लिए भी वी वुड नीड अंडरस्टैंडिंग ऑफ इस्लामिक आइडियोलॉजी एंड कन्वर्ट देम बैक. दिस डिडंट हैपन बिकॉज वी हैड नो आइडिया दैट देयर वाज एन एपिस्टेमिक थ्रेट टू द धर्मा. बिकॉज वी ऑलवेज कंसिडर दैट ओ अच्छा तुम्हें आना है, यू विल कम एंड लिव विद अस, व्हाट्स द प्रॉब्लम, इफ यू क्रिएट अ प्रॉब्लम विल किल यू. They had no idea that Islam was posing a threat also epistemically, not just with the sword. So they had no idea that someone can be this evil, I guess. That is what I've understood. और कोई explanation नहीं समझ में आता है other than the fact that entire Muslim world was united. Everyone was united, not among themselves obviously, united in their hatred for Hindus, but Hindus were not united in their hatred for Muslims. Hindus were also seeing, Hindu kings were also seeing their own benefits obviously, because we didn't identify as a one Hindu state or one nation state. We had a common culture, but we didn't think that being united against a common enemy is important, because we didn't know an enemy can be this bad. So we have realized now, 1000 years later, but we have realized now, so now it's all good. कुछ चीज़ें तो screw ups होंगे. That was the wrong Chauhan did, leaving Muhammad Ghori. Yeah. Like Babur himself was invited by another Rajput king, right? Because he was looking for an ally. So he didn't know that what a ruckus this guy is going to create. We see, everyone sees a bit of themselves in other people, right? So if you are a completely dharmic person, you have no idea what Abrahamic faiths are. You will judge everyone by your own standards. Why do leftists think everyone is fascist? Why do Abrahamic faiths think everyone is fascist, everyone wants to kill other people, everyone is trying to commit a religion based genocide, racial genocide, because they themselves think on those lines. That's why they extrapolate that on us, and we extrapolate our love and bonhomie and brotherhood on everyone else. So that is the thing. So we have figured out these things now. We were beginning to figure out with people like Sri Aurobindo, Jagannath Sarkar, Sitaram Goel, और थोड़ा time लग गया. अभी or more people are finally, now the majority of the country realizes this. So we didn't realize then, now we realize. That's the best answer we can come to. तो what we can conclude safely is that they were wrong and we are right. तो ऐसा नहीं है कि पास्ट में वो लोग थे तो इसलिए वो लोग पूरा भगवान है, वो लोगों ने सब कुछ ठीक किया. नो, वी आर फेसिंग द ब्रंट ऑफ दीज थिंग्स मोर. दे डिडंट फेस द ब्रंट as much as we have. So we are in some position to comment on these things better than our past Hindu kings actually. Floods and drought. A drought is worse than too much rain because drought destroys livelihood. During the rainy season, villagers living near river banks shall move to higher ground. They shall keep a collection of wooden planks, bamboo, and boats. Persons carried away by floods shall be rescued using gourds, skin bags, tree trunks, canoes, boats, and thick ropes. Owners of canoes shall be punished if they do not try to save someone in danger. Canoe है मगर बचाएगा नहीं किसी को, उसके लिए भी punishment होगा. Persons learned in the Vedas are experts in occult practices, tantra, and they shall use prayers and incantations against excessive rain. Conversely, Indra, the Ganges, the mountains, and the god of the sea shall be worshipped in times of drought. Human and animal diseases and epidemics. The following shall be called upon to counteract diseases and epidemics affecting human beings: physicians by using medicines, sadhus, ascetics by purificatory or expiatory rites, and experts by occult means, that is tantra. Making oblations, prarthana, prayer. Making oblations, offerings, invocations. Making oblations to or organizing night festivals in honor of gods, worshipping of the gods of the sea, milking cows in cremation grounds, and burning effigies are other methods of averting the dangers of epidemics. In case of diseases or epidemics affecting the cattle, purificatory rites of their sheds and special worship of the appropriate gods shall be performed. Now, famine. The methods of counteracting the effects of famine are distributing to the public on concessional terms seeds and food from the royal stores. Famine के लिए क्या क्या करना है? Like जब देश में famine चल रहा था, शाहजहां ताजमहल बना रहा था because he had no backup. So, but this is on the other hand the Kautilyan way of dealing with famines. Distribute to the public on concessional terms seeds and food from the royal stores. Undertake food for work programs such as building forts or irrigation works. Share out the royal food stocks. Commandeer for public distribution private stocks of food. Seek the help of friendly kings. Shift the affected population. So if Shah Jahan had read Arthashastra, he would have done a much better job. Shift the affected population to a different region. Encourage temporary migration to another country. Move the entire population with the king and court to a region or country with abundant harvest or near the sea, lakes, or rivers. Supplement the harvest with additional cultivation of grain, vegetables, roots, and fruits by fishing and by hunting deer, cattle, birds, and wild animals. तो अगर grain, vegetables, roots, fruits का famine आ गया तब जाके hunt करो, जंतु वंतु मारो, खाओ, जिंदा तो रहना है पहले. Okay, now calamities coming from rats, locusts, etc. Plague and all from rats. In case of danger from rats, locusts, birds, or insects, the appropriate animals shall be let loose and these predators protected from being killed or harassed by dogs. तो जो प्रेडेटर एनिमल छोड़ना है उसको अगर जाके किसी का कुत्ता डिस्टर्ब कर दे वो भी नहीं चलेगा. They have to be protected. Poisoned grain may be strewn around and purificatory rites may be performed by experts. Or the rat tax. Rat tax. A quota of dead rats to be brought in by each one may be fixed. Wild animals का problem calamity कैसे handle करे? In case of danger from marauding wild animals such as tigers, crocodiles, herds of animals, or flocks of birds, the following methods may be adopted. लीव poisoned carcasses of adult or young animals. वो खा के वो लोग मर जाएंगे तो ठीक हो जाएगा. Get hunters and fowlers hidden in pits or cages to trap or kill them. Send men suitably armed and armored to kill them. Failure to try to save someone threatened by a wild animal is a punishable offense. The reward for saving someone is the same, 12 pana, 12 punds. Okay, so it's already a 1.5 hour live stream. So we'll pick it up from tomorrow or day after tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll probably do a Bengali live stream of Rig Veda, or we'll do Manusmriti. I haven't decided that yet. So not many people are online now. So we'll continue again when people are online. So bye guys. Thank you for coming to this live stream. It was a 1.5 hour nice discussion. देखते हैं अब इसको कहाँ से बंद करें. I am very confused about it.